Good morning. Good to see all your beautiful faces. All right, so this month, the month of March, we are going to explore a state, that state of joy and bliss and enchantment and amazement and that goose-pimply, jaw-dropping phenomena that we refer to as awe. Let's all say it together. Awe. That wonderful word, awe. It just expresses it really well. It's just like this open sound, right? This open vowel sound, awe. And we're not just going to talk about it or say the word. We're actually going to experience it. And why do we want to experience it? Because the experience of awe gets us out of ourselves. It really erases the boundaries between ourselves and others. It brings us into the present moment and into the presence of the divine. And we're just more apt to notice and experience the sacred. And it opens those sort of doors of perception within us so that we can see and experience the magical, the mystical, if even just for a moment, right? But that moment can be transformational. And it turns out that this experience of awe or increasing the moments of wonder in our lives is healthy. It's healing for our spirit and our mind and our body. Just even on the physical level, the increasing the moments that we experience in awe or wonder stimulate the vagus nerve, which is VAGUS, not Vegas is in Las Vegas. I can't imagine stimulating that. Well, maybe it would make you crave to go see a floor show or go gamble or something. You don't want to stimulate that nerve. This is VAGUS. And now I don't know too much about it, but I have been hearing more and more about it. And what I understand is that it's the longest nerve in our body, and it connects all the important pieces from our brain into our lungs and our heart and in our gut. And when the vagus nerve is stimulated, from what I've been reading, it sort of provokes that relaxation response. You know, your rapid heart rate can be slowed down, and digestion improves. They're also doing experiments of stimulating, using some specific thing to stimulate the vagus nerve that controls seizures and reduces depression. So I have a feeling we're going to be, I see some heads nodding there. Some people know about that, right? I have a feeling we're going to be hearing more about that. It really sounds like an exciting branch of science. So that's just the physical benefit, right, of the experience of increasing the moments of wonder in our lives. And there are two guides. These are the guides that I'll be using during this month that have already inspired me. And this is Awe, the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life, by Dacher Keltner. And I heard him interviewed on a podcast, Krista Tippett's On Being. Has anybody heard that podcast, Krista Tippett On Being? I highly recommend it. She has really fabulous guests, and she's very insightful herself spiritually. So look for it. I think you'll enjoy that. So Dacher Keltner, I think that's how you pronounce his name, is kind of this youngish, happy, hippie-looking Northern California dude. And he's a professor at UC Berkeley, naturally. And he has been spending his life studying emotions, moral identity, the search for meaning. And he is the leader, the director of the Institute, the Compassion Institute, or what is it? Oh, Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. So in other words, right up our alley, right? He's our kind of guy. And so, and the second book is called Enchantment, Awakening Wonder in an Anxious Age by Katherine May. And this is kind of her personal journey of rediscovering wonder in her life and how that's really transformed her. And she's a poet. So it's written beautifully. And I was thinking this might be good for like a book study. If anybody's interested in doing a book study around this, you can come afterwards and take a look at it, see if it's something that might interest you, and then, we can talk about when we might want to do that for this month. Okay. All right. So, it's interesting that both of these books have come out at the same time. And I'm reading a lot of articles and hearing interviews around this topic. And maybe it's like something that, I don't know. Maybe it's the thing that this anxious, materialistic, out of balance world is needing right now. It could be something that helps bring us back into balance. And so, and also it's kind of, when I first started looking at this, I thought it was kind of weird to take a topic like, or an experience of awe, that ineffable experience of awe, and try to, dissect it scientifically and categorize it and label it. And how do you even define that, right? Something that is beyond words. So Professor Keltner, does a pretty good job, and he says this: awe is the feeling of being in the presence of something that transcends your understanding of the world. Being in the presence of something that transcends your understanding of the world. He also, throughout the book, he refers to it as encountering some vast mystery. And so when I think of, thinking about it, I think, well, I could relate to that in terms of that experience that I had the first time I saw the moon or Saturn through a telescope for the first time. If you've ever seen that, it's like, wow, that's like a real thing. It's amazing. Or, now this is something I haven't seen before. Has anybody seen the Aurora Borealis? Oh, you have? Oh, God, it's on my bucket list. Oh, that's right, you've been to, Alaska. Yeah, I really want to see that. Or, something I have done is stood next to a giant sequoia. That's an experience of awe. How about standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon? Oh my God, it just takes your breath away. And I had kind of a similar experience of awe when I first came to North Carolina, and we were visiting to see if we might want to live here. And it was the end of summer, and flying over, looking out, and there's this blanket of green, just everywhere, blanket of green. I come from Southern California, which is like desert, sort of desert. And then, getting out of the plane, and you just look, all these tall, they're so tall, right? They're skinny, but they're tall, and they're all like the same height, and there's millions of them. That really gives me, and it still does, when I pay attention, when I'm, alert to that. It still gives me that sense of awe. And now it doesn't have to be a vast, expanse kind of thing. You can also have awe, and this we're talking about right now in terms of nature. There's other categories of awe we'll talk about, but this is in terms of nature. So, like on the microcosmic level, if you've ever seen just even a drop of water that you think, it's just a drop of water, and you look at it under a microscope, it's like teeming with life, right? Or how about a nautilus shell and the perfect proportions? It's like that, the mathematical Fibonacci sequence that expresses the perfect proportion of a nautilus shell, and also, many other expresses, ferns, pineapples, what else? Pine cone? Sunflowers. Yeah. That what? Beehives, yeah. Right, it's that same beautiful, perfect pattern. So I'd like to take a moment and ask you if, in terms of nature or natural things, what has provoked that experience of awe in you? Anybody like to share something? Yeah, Sharon.
The day our first son was born, and this may not be the right way to say it, but this is how it was profound to me.
Yeah.
Food started coming out of my body to sustain my baby.
Oh, yes, right. Okay, I know what you're saying.
That is just...
Yes. Giving birth, and the mother's instinct is like, whoop, you start producing the food that the baby needs. Yeah, I know. It's pretty miraculous. Anyone else? Yeah, Mary.
On a trip out west with my family when I was probably about 12, we came around the corner and in front with the Grand Tetons.
Oh.
And I screamed. I was,
Did you
I
really?
just was stunned
Just struck.
how gorgeous that was.
Yeah, the Grand Tetons, Mary was saying, as a child. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, Lorraine.
When I was at the Grand Tetons, it brought tears, but that's not what I was going to share.
Brought tears to your eyes. Yeah.
Camping in the Grand Canyon on this rafting trip, and I was laying outside at night, and like the stars, there was hardly any black in the sky. It was just like all stars.
Oh, really?
And it felt like there was this merging into me, the light, and it was like I never forgot that. It was like amazing.
Were you young, like a teenager? Or?
No, probably 40s.
Really? Oh, that's great. If you didn't hear that, it was an experience of a rafting trip in the Grand Canyon where she saw when there's no light pollution and it's just, you to see those stars, you just can't believe that they're all there. It's just we can't see it.
I know, all the time.
Yeah, they're there all the time. Oh, wow.
Swimming with dolphins.
Swimming with dolphins. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Two things in Alaska. One is the silt, the color it turns the river in the Kenai River. It's just
The color of silt?
It's a bluish green that you can't really find many other places in nature.
Wow.
And then the glaciers and being on a glacier.
Being on a glacier, yeah.
It's a blue that just surrounds you and you cannot
Yeah.
get over it the whole time you're on it.
Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah. Do you see how we're beginning, just people sharing these experiences, we're beginning to kind of connect with that experience of awe? Somebody else over here? Yeah, Frank.
Well, I've always been fascinated with the blue sky, the trees, the openness. But the one feeling of awesome was when I was first flying in a little airplane by myself doing that so-called solo. And I got to do the dream feeling like a bird. And just being out there saying, oh my God, this little thing by myself.
Wow.
And you can see, like you said, the amount of green, the sky, just how beautiful the world. It was a transformation. It's like seeing the creation. And
from up above.
Up
yeah.
and above, you can see 100 miles. And just the gift of flying, just
The
to be
gift
like
of
a bird.
flying,
So
yeah.
that was awesome.
Oh, I know. I remember the first time I went up in a plane, and the experience of piercing through the clouds, on the ground, it looks all gray and dismal and cloudy, and then just piercing through that, and the sun is there. I use that as an analogy of this idea that spirit is always there, the wholeness is always there, but we sometimes need to pierce through that thick layer, right, in order to perceive it. Yeah. Yeah, one more, Dolores.
So my husband and I were driving out of the Rocky Mountains to catch a flight in Denver, and we had to be there really early. So as we're coming down, he's driving, and the sun is coming up over the Great Plains.
Oh.
And it was just mind-blowing. It was so beautiful. And here we're in the mountains. We're not out yet. We're still up pretty high. The mountain is behind us, under us, and then in front of us is just that Great Plain.
Yeah.
That you see labeled on the map. You may drive across it, you may fly over it.
Right.
But coming and seeing the sun rise over it was amazing.
Yeah, the sunrise over the plain. So, yeah, thank you. It's, and you know, I would encourage us today, if we want a little taste of experience of awe, we've gotten it here just listening to people sharing, but also I would encourage you to walk out in our sacred spaces after the service today. The Serenity Trail, the Medicine Wheel, the Spiral Labyrinth. We had a workshop here yesterday, and we did that. You know, we took a half an hour and walked through that, and it's just so nice to reconnect, that reconnection, especially since all of the little leaves are starting to come in, and you know, it's like the earth is waking up again. That feeling of awe that we want to cultivate. We want to welcome that sense. Okay, so that's one category. So this Professor Keltner has decided that there are 8 categories of awe that he's discovered. This by doing interviews with people, thousands of interviews with people all over the world and in different cultures. So to minimize any kind of cultural bias, you know, from all different walks of life, all different cultures. And so the first one is nature. The second one of the experience of awe is he calls collective effervescence. Collective effervescence, and that's that experience of having that rush, that energy of awe together with a lot of other people. So even people that you normally wouldn't like hang out with, you don't even share anything in common, you know, you can have an experience. So think about being at a football game, right? Or a basketball game, and you're there with thousands of other people, and you know, someone makes an amazing pass, right, that wins the game, or some jaw-dropping 3-point shot, you know, in a basketball. And what happens? You jump to everybody jumps to their feet, and your hearts leap, and it's an explosion of joy, right? You're cheering. That's collective effervescence. That's an experience that keeps people coming back to those kinds of experiences, to really just have that. And it doesn't have to be sports. It can be sitting in a concert hall, right, with hundreds of other people watching, you know, a concert pianist masterfully playing Rachmaninoff, you know, Concerto No. 2, whatever. And just, the chills, right? You get these chills just all over. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be classic. When I was a teenager, I was at a sports stadium watching, you know, rock bands, you know, Led Zeppelin. Yeah, that was that same experience. I had that same experience of collective effervescence. All right, so we're going to talk more about this one later in the month. The third one is moral beauty. Is that beautiful? Moral beauty. I just love that term. And so this is the kind of experience we get when we witness somebody doing some act of bravery or courage or compassion. Somebody who, you know, steps out of their comfort zone to help somebody else. We're witnessing this, and it gives us a sense of awe. We're going to be talking about this particular one in detail next week. That's what the whole topic is. So stay tuned. The fourth one is musical awe. Now, you don't have to be in a concert hall to have this experience of chills when you're listening to some inspirational song. You could be by yourself or listening to our wonderful band and Kara singing. I mean, you just like, right? It's that we can get chills. It's that experience of, oh, wow. And I'll bet I don't play an instrument, but musicians, you probably have had the experience where you're in this flow, you know, where you just you're so absorbed in it, so you lose all track of time, and you just feel so connected with each other, right? And then afterwards, you might go, wow, that was great. Let's get to that again. Yeah, I've never played an instrument, but when I was young, I danced. And I remember those experiences of it. Sometimes it flowed so much with the music, like there was no place where my physical body ended and the music began. It was just all so one. So that's the experience of musical awe. The next one is visual design. So think about maybe if you've ever been to Egypt and looking at the pyramids, or the Sydney Opera House, or the Parthenon, or, just think of some architectural wonder. That can give us that sense of awe. And it doesn't have to be a vast thing. Again, it can be something really small, like having a little crystal that you hang in the window, and when the sunlight hits it just right, there is, it casts these rainbows all over the walls. I remember when my kids were little, and like the first few times that we did this, that crystal was there, and the rainbows all over the, and kids, they're just like, mouths open. Wow. Wow. And then they get a little older, and they've seen it a few times, and it's suddenly like, I've seen that before. Where's my computer game? So, the idea is we want to recapture that wonder of just being in the moment, being present to it, and witnessing, just allowing ourselves to have that experience of wonder. The sixth category is spirituality and religion, which seems obvious to us. We do practices intentionally to get us to a place where we're open to the experience of the sacred. But it is something in all of humanity has that pull, that urge, that perennial search for a state of bliss or nirvana or satori or, mystical oneness, however you define it. Not everybody's aware of that, and it somehow sometimes goes in a different direction because they're not real clear about what that is. But we all have deep in our soul that urge to have that sacred experience of mystical awe. Stories of life and death. And Sharon, you just shared about this. If you've ever seen a baby being born, if you've ever given birth yourself, that there's just nothing like that experience. Even just witnessing a birth, a new life coming into the world. Also on the opposite end of that spectrum, when somebody passes and you're close to that person and, we're left grieving, but sometimes in that we can have an experience that's so profound that we know that this is not all there is. This physical body is not all there is, that we can have an experience of the eternality of the soul. I had that experience with my mother. When my mother was passing, and right before she left, she was really focused. Her eyes were really focused on something. And I don't know what it was, angels or relatives or the face of the divine or something, and there was just a beatific look on her face. And I knew that she was going somewhere that was just beyond any experience of peace and love in that moment. So it was a real awe-filled moment that really transformed my understanding. And I think a few of you have had that experience. Yeah. Okay, the last category is epiphanies. So that's, scientific discoveries are included in this category, but also that moment where something becomes really clear, the aha moment, something you've been struggling with for a while, and then suddenly it all opens up and you get it. Maybe it's a metaphysical concept, or maybe it's Now I understand why I had this experience or this challenge. And it's just clarity and that aha moment. That's the experience of awe as well. So the experience of awe really effectively quiets the voice of our small self, that small ego self, that nagging voice that kind of keeps us trapped in that fear or doubt or blame or guilt or helplessness or that need that we have to try to change others or control others. So the experience of awe quiets that, and we're transported to this universal self, that higher divine universal self that connects us with each other and connects us with all of life. And we get to that place where we can notice that there is a perfect pattern at the center of everything. A perfect pattern at the center of everything that responds to our awareness of it. That's what the experience of awe. So we want to cultivate in more and more moments in our day, more and more moments in our life, and allow ourselves to be present to it, to witness it, to allow that experience of awe to just move us. And in all of these different categories, which this month we'll be talking about them individually and seeing how maybe we can enhance that. So I'd like to close by reading a passage in Katherine May's book about awe. And she says, "Enchantment came so easily to me as a child, but I wrongly thought it was small, parochial, a shameful thing to be put away in the rush towards adulthood. Now I wonder how I can find it again. It turns out that it had nothing to do with beauty after all, not in a grand objective sense. I think instead that when I was young, it came from a deep engagement with the world around me, the particular quality of experience that accompanies close attention, a sense of contact that emerges from noticing. I worked hard to suppress all those things. I thought it was what I had to do in order to grow up. It took years of work, years of careful forgetting. I never realized what I was losing." Yeah, so becoming aware, noticing, being present to, that's what we're going to cultivate this month, together, collectively, in a collective effervescent sense. All right, namaste.